women, or men, who have kept their virginity until marriage due to tradition or religion. What was the first night like? Serious. My wife and I were both virgins when we got married. The first time was great and funny to look back on. I didn't even make it fully inside her before blowing my load, but after 15 to 20 minutes we were right back at it and had better success. We went at it at least one other time that night and then were humping like rabbits as soon as we woke up the next day. So much coitus that week. My wife and I both waited until marriage. Our first night was a disaster. We actually got walked in on by strangers while we were stripping in our hotel room because the hotel switched our room last minute and forgot to give the other couple a different key. It took me quite a while to get it up. I wasn't particularly nervous. I think the little guy was just shy. She said later she didn't even notice. I spilled the entire bottle of lube in the middle of the bed. Although it was kind of a disaster, we were able to laugh about it and we still had fun and look back fondly on the night. Edit. Since a lot of people are asking about it, we knew we were going to need lube because a side effect of her birth control is that it makes her very dry. Or thread like this gets posted every once in a while and it's neat to read the replies. But no one's ever described the build up. Like even in the weeks leading up. How stoked/nervous were you? Did you daydream about it? Did you get mega chubs? Were you dreading it? Oh, I definitely had fantasies about what it would be. Like it was interesting knowing exactly when it would guaranteed happen. I was super excited. I wasn't dreading it, but I was somewhat nervous. Naturally, we had talked about it enough leading up to it, so we were both on the same page and felt comfortable with how we would act on our first time. We tried to go into it with as low of expectations as possible. We knew it wasn't going to go well the first time, but we knew we had our whole lives to work on it. Haha. My husband and I were both virgins when we got married. We were very excited, not only to have coitus for the first time, but to get to live in the same house, go to sleep in the same bed, etc. Up until we got married, we never spent time alone together in his apartment or my dorm. It wasn't as if we just had great coitus immediately. I was painfully tight and also a bit fearful, and he couldn't last for very long, but that didn't really matter. We talked openly and just spent time together and touched each other and enjoyed being together and laughed a lot together. We played rock paper scissors for who would take their clothes off first. So honestly, the first night in terms of coitus was pretty disappointing, but neither of us were disappointed because we weren't just looking forward to coitus, we were looking forward to being married. And we were thrilled that we were finally married and got to live together. By the end of the honeymoon we were better at just the literal mechanics of coitus and no less thrilled to be around each other and be married and be naked. The first night was fine, but some fumbling around. What was worse was the next 3 years. We were virgins for religious reasons. However, she had some mental block about uncircumcised penises, even though that had nothing to do with our religion. 2 or 3 months into our marriage she starts bawling after coitus and confesses that my uncircumcised penis has led to her waiting for me to fall asleep before she would then cry herself to sleep at night. From that point on, she would openly cry at night or openly cry during or right after coitus. Then we had another miserable 3 years together, pretty much hating being married but sticking it out because in that religion divorce could get you kicked out of the church. I became so depressed that by the day she finally did leave me, I only weighed 125 pounds at 6 feet tall. 3 weeks later I had my appetite back due to sheer joy and had gained 25 pounds in 21 days. If we hadn't been in that religion our relationship would have lasted no longer than it would take for me to drop my pants in front of her because she literally couldn't stand foreskin. I never confirmed it, but I always suspected she must have been abused to cause such a reaction. I'm no longer in the church anymore and don't speak to old friends or any family. Honestly the best decision I've ever made, to leave and not come back. Edit. Thank you for the gold, kind person. I'm glad to have moved on from a religion, Jehovah's Witnesses, for those wondering, that causes many to feel trapped and avoid truly living their lives. I'm glad if my experience can help anyone. Trust me, things are better on the other side, but if you're thinking of leaving, take the time to do it right. Take a year and build up a support network of worldly friends before you cut ties. Make sure you can support yourself financially, especially if you are younger. Send me a PM if you need more advice. Edit 2. A lot are asking why not just get circumcised. I actually did research this option, and my urologist and the many men I found who had undergone adult circumcision all advised me against it. Additionally, the circumcision issue wasn't the only problem we had, and solving that problem would have done nothing about the others. The sad truth is that she and I really, truly ought not to have married, but we did anyways, because of our religion. My husband and I were both virgins when we got married. We finally lost the V card 3 days after the wedding. On our wedding night, he couldn't get the right angle to get in and had a premature detonation. I was too shy to help guide him in. He said, "Crap, I'm so sorry," and then we went to sleep. Repeat for a few days until finally boom. It hurts for a second, and it was over another second later. We've been married 10 years now. We are happy and have a good healthy bedroom life. I think we are both rather easygoing and found it rather funny. It helped that neither of us had high expectations that it was going to be magic the first few 50 times. We still tease each other about it now. My husband and I both waited until we were married. But on our wedding night, I suppose from all the commotion and stress from the wedding, my husband came down with a high fever about the same time we made it to our hotel room. So we just ordered in a pizza and went to sleep. The next day though, we gave it a whirl. Or tried, I should say. I'm not entirely sure how much of it was because of our own inexperience and how much of it was because of my husband's disability, mild cerebral palsy, but we couldn't get it in. Tried and failed and switched positions, and tried and failed, until we gave up and just did other things. Epic disappointment for both parties as far as having real coitus goes. It's like you wait your whole life for that one moment, and then it just doesn't work out the way you had imagined. Lame. Guy here. Fiancé and I had known for a long time we wanted to stay virgins until marriage. We still did some heavy petting while dating, but always through clothes. Fast forward to our wedding night, and I'm hyped after get things going. She comes out of the bathroom after changing into lingerie, and she is hot. Instant chub hot. So we start with our foreplay. Clothes start coming off. My guy made a surprise appearance through the fly in my boxers as soon as she unbuttoned my pants. We still laugh about that. Turns out we shoulder talked about the night before we got there. We weren't tired, but she apparently had no intention of actually going any further that night, while I had every intention of going all the way. Not wanting to start our marriage off with an argument, I suck it up and think no biggie, it'll happen on the honeymoon. So we went to bed. No coitus, no oral, not even a handy. Spoiler, it did not happen on our honeymoon, but not for the same reasons. Turns out, my wife has vaginismus. We didn't know what it was at the time, where she has extreme difficulty having any sort of penetration. We are talking intense burning pain. I couldn't even get the tip in, and I'm of average girthiness. It was like trying to drill through a wall with your guy. One day we did manage to achieve penetration, but it was burning so bad I couldn't thrust, so we pulled out. Pretty much ruined the intimacy vibe for the entire trip. Nearly 3 years later, and we still can't really do penetration, but do other stuff instead. She feels awful about not being able to have the intimacy we both, mostly me, want, and I know it's not her fault, so I try to understand her position the best that I can. And for the record, she has trouble with tampons and pap smears too, so it's not just coitus. Which all of those combined led to in-depth convos with her OBGYN that led us to vaginismus. I was raised religious and planned on saving myself for marriage. I entered into a long-term relationship in college, my first real relationship, and began to think twice about why I was continuing my abstinence. She was raised religious as well, and had similar notions, both the original abstinence plan and the second guessing. At roughly the same time I fell away from organized religion. College, i.e. critical thinking, often does that to you. My girlfriend and I ended up in an apartment together, and even shared a bed for nearly 3 years, but never had coitus. We didn't even use the religious loophole. If you can imagine it, no penetrative coitus, no oral, not really much more than occasional heavy petting for basically 5 years. Somewhere along the line we had both given up on the abstinence because of religion thing, but continued to practice it due to some severe obsessive thoughts around unintended pregnancy. By this point I didn't get too excited over coitus or lack thereof, so we just continued to abstain. We eventually married and attempted to celebrate the occasion in the usual fashion, but due in part to our inexperience and the incredibly high anticipation of the evening, it didn't go well. We learned a bit on the honeymoon, but we were still too new at it to really be able to maximize pleasure for either party. We will be celebrating our 4th anniversary this year and we have pretty solidly figured out what we are doing. We have learned, however, that she could very easily have no drive. She doesn't have a libido to speak of, while mine is like a freight train. We are working though that with no ill will from either party. I have recommended to several younger people in my life to experiment before marriage. I think if I were in college again I would do things differently, but I do not doubt for a second that I would have still ended up with my wife. We mesh incredibly well together, and our bedroom differences do not detract from our relationship because of our personalities. This will not be the case for every couple. If we were wired up differently, the libido difference could easily be a deal breaker. You should make an effort to know what kind of person you are, where your lines are, where you are willing to compromise, and where you are not.